The lot for the people of Joseph went from Jordan near Jericho, east of the spring of Jericho, north through the desert mountains to Bethel. It went on from Bethel, that is, Luz, to the territory of the Archites in Ataroth. It then descended westward to the territory of the Jephlethites, to the region of lower Beth Horon, and on to Gezer, ending at the sea. This is the region from which the people of Joseph, Manasseh, and Ephraim got their inheritance, Ephraim's territory by clans. The boundary of their inheritance went from Ataroth Adar in the east to the upper Beth Horon, and then west to the sea. From Methoth on the north, it turned eastward to Tanath Shiloh, and passed along still eastward to Genoa. The border then descended from Genoa to Atorah and Nahara. It touched Jericho and came out at the Jordan. From Tapua, the Jordan border went westward to the brook Kanah and ended at the sea. This was the inheritance of the tribe of Ephraim by clans, including the cities set aside for Ephraim within the inheritance of Manasseh, all those towns and their villages. But they didn't get rid of the Canaanites who were living in Gezer. Canaanites are still living among the people of Ephraim, but they are made to do forced labor. Joshua chapter 17. This is the lot that fell to the people of Manasseh, Joseph's firstborn. Gilead and Bashan had already been given to Machir, Manasseh's firstborn, and father of Gilead, because he was an outstanding fighter. So the lot that follows went to the rest of the people of Manasseh and their clans, the clans of Abiezer, Helek, Azriel, Shechem, Hefer, and Shemida. These are the male descendants from Manasseh, son of Joseph, by their clans. Zelophehad, son of Hefer, the son of Gilead, the son of Mechir, the son of Manasseh, had no sons, only daughters. Their names were Mahlah, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. They went to Eleazar the priest, Joshua son of Nun, and the leaders said, God commanded Moses to give us an inheritance among our kinsmen. And Joshua did it. He gave them, as God commanded, an inheritance amid their father's brothers. Manasseh's lot came to 10 portions, in addition to the land of Gilead and Bashan on the other side of the Jordan, because Manasseh's daughters got an inheritance along with his sons. The land of Gilead belonged to the rest of the people of Manasseh. The boundary of Manasseh went from Asher all the way to Machmethah, just opposite Shechem, then ran southward to the people living in Tapua. The land of Tapua belonged to Manasseh, but Tapua itself on the border of Manasseh belonged to the Ephraimites. The boundary continued south to brook Kanah. The cities there belonged to Ephraim, although they lay among the cities of Manasseh. The boundary of Manasseh ran north of the brook and ended at the sea. The land to the south belonged to Ephraim, the land to the north to Manasseh. With the sea as their western border, they meet Asher on the north and Issachar on the east. Within Issachar and Asher, Manasseh also held Bethshan, Ibleam, and the people of Dor, Endor, Tanakh, and Megiddo, together with their villages, and the third in the list of Naphoth. The people of Manasseh never were able to take over these towns. The Canaanites wouldn't budge, but later when the Israelites got stronger, they put the Canaanites to forced labor, but they never did get rid of them. The people of Joseph spoke to Joshua. Why did you give us just one allotment, one solitary share? There are a lot of us and growing. God has extravagantly blessed us. Joshua responded, since there are so many of you and you find the hill country of Ephraim too confining, climb into the forest and clear ground there for yourselves in the land of the Perizzites and the Rephaim. But the people of Joseph said, there's not enough hill country for us. And the Canaanites who live down in the plain, both those in Bethshan and its villages in the valley of Jezreel, have iron chariots. Joshua said to the family of Joseph, to Ephraim and Manasseh, yes, there are a lot of you and you're very strong. One lot is not enough for you. You also get the hill country. It's nothing but trees now. But you will clear the land and make it your own from one end to the other. The powerful Canaanites, even with their iron chariots, won't stand a chance against you. Joshua chapter 18, the Shiloh survey. Then the entire congregation of the people of Israel got together at Shiloh. They put up the tent of meeting. The land was under their control, but there were still several Israelite tribes who had yet to receive their inheritance, rather. Joshua addressed the people of Israel. How long are you going to sit around on your backs, or on your hands, rather, putting off taking possession of the land that God, the God of your ancestors, has given you? Pick 3 men from each tribe so I can commission them. They will survey the map and map the land, showing the inheritance due each tribe, and report back to me. They will divide it into 7 parts. Judah will stay in its territory in the south, and the people of Joseph will keep their place in the north. You are responsible for preparing a survey map showing 7 portions. Then bring it to me so I can cast lots for you here in the presence of our God. Only the Levites get no portion among you, because the priesthood of God is their inheritance. And Gad, Reuben, and the half-tribe of Manasseh already have their inheritance on the east side of the Jordan, given to them by Moses, the servant of God. So the men set out. As they went out to survey the land, Joshua charged them, "Go, survey the land and map it. Then come back to me, and I will cast lots for you here at Shiloh in the presence of God." So off the men went. They covered the ground and mapped the country by towns in a scroll. Then they reported back to Joshua at the camp at Shiloh. Joshua cast lots for them at Shiloh in the presence of God. That's where Joshua divided up the land to the people of Israel according to their tribal divisions. Benjamin. The first lot turned up for the tribe Benjamin with its clans. The border of the allotment went between the peoples of Judah and Joseph. The northern border began at the Jordan, then went up to the ridge north of Jericho, ascending west into the hill country into the wilderness of Beth-aven. From there, the border went around to Luz, it's the southern ridge, that is Bethel, and then down from Ataroth, Adar, to the mountain to the south of lower Beth-horon. There, the border took a turn on the west side and swung south from the mountain to the south of Beth-horon and ended up at Kiriath Baal, that is Kiriath Jearim, a town of the people of Judah. This was the west side. The southern border began at the edge of Kiriath Jearim on the west, then ran west until it reached the spring, the waters of Nephtoah. It then descended to the foot of the mountain opposite the valley of Ben Hinnom, which flanks the valley of Rephaim to the north, descended to the Hinnom Valley just south of the Jebusite Ridge, and went on to En Rigel. From there it curved north to En Shemesh and Gileath, opposite the Red Pass, Adumim. Down to the south of Bohan, the south of Reuben, continued toward the north flank of Beth Araba, then plunged to the Araba. It then followed the slope of Beth Hogla north and came out at the northern bay of the Salt Sea, the south end of the Jordan. This was the southern border. The east border was formed by the Jordan. This was the inheritance of the people of Benjamin for their clans, marked by these borders on all sides. The cities of the tribe of Benjamin, clan by clan, were Jericho, Beth Hogla, Emek Keziz, Beth Araba, Zemarium, Bethel, Avim, Para, Ophrah, Kipha Ammoni, Ophni, and Geba, 12 towns with their villages. Gibeon, Ramah, Beeroth, Mizpah, Kephara, Moza, Rekem, Erpeel, Terelah, Zelah, Halapath, the Jebusite city, that is Jerusalem, Gibeah, and Kiriath Jearim, 14 cities with their villages. This was the inheritance for Benjamin according to its clans. And I don't know why it keeps asking me for ads, because I paid so that there will not be any ads. That's ridiculous. Joshua chapter 19, Simeon. The second lot went to Simeon for its clans. Their inheritance was within the territory of Judah, and their inheritance they had Beersheba or Sheba, Moladah, Hazar Shual, Bala, Ezim, Betolad, Bethul, Hormah, Ziklag, Beth Morkaboth, Hazar Susa, Beth Jilboth, and Shirahan, 13 towns and their villages. Ain, Rimmon, Ether, and Ashan, 4 towns and their villages, plus all the villages around these towns as far as Balath Bear and Ramah of the Negev. This is the inheritance of the tribe of Simeon according to its clans. The inheritance of Simeon came out of the share of Judah because Judah's portion turned out to be more than they needed. That's how the people of Simeon came to get their lot from within Judah's portion. Zebulun. The third lot went to Zebulun, clan by clan. The border of their inheritance went all the way to Sarid. It ran west to Marlah, met at Dibisheth, and then went to the brook opposite Jokneam. And the other direction from Sarid border ran east. It followed the sunrise to the border of Kisloth Tabor, on to Deberoth, and up to Japhia. It continued east to Gath Hephar and Eth Kazin, came out at Remen, and turned toward Neah. There the border went around on the north to Hanathon and ran out into the valley of Ithah-el. It included Katah, Nahalal, Shimram, Adalah, and Bethlehem, 12 cities with their villages. This is the inheritance of the people of Zebulun for their clans, these towns and their villages. Issachar. The fourth lot went to Issachar, clan by clan. Their territory included Jezreel, Kesulath, Shunem, Haphiram, Shian, Anarath, Rabith, Kishion Ebez, Rameth, En Gamim, En Ahadah, and Beth Pazez. The boundary touched Tabor, Shahazumah, and Beth-Shemesh, and ended at the Jordan, 16 towns and their villages. These towns with their villages were the inheritance of the tribe of Issachar, clan by clan. Asher. The fifth lot went to the tribe of Asher, clan by clan. Their territory included Helkath, Hali, Betan, Aksaph, Alamelech, Amad, and Mishal. The western border touched Carmel and Shehar Lepnath, then turned east toward Beth Dagon, touched Zebulun and the valley of Iphath-el, and went north to Beth Emek and Neiel, skirting Kabul on the left. It went on to Abdon, Rehob, Haman, and Kahal, all the way to Greater Sidon. The border circled back toward Ramah, extended to the fort city of Tyre, turned toward Hassah, and came out at the sea in the region Akzib, Humah, Aphek, and Rehob, 22 towns and their villages. These towns and villages were the inheritance of the tribe of Asher, clan by clan. Naphtali. The sixth lot came to Naphtali and its clans. Their border ran from Hileph, from the oak of Zanim, passing Adamai, Nekeb, and Jabneel, Etelechem, and ended at the Jordan. The border returned on the west to Aznath-Tabor and came out at Hakak, meeting Zebulun on the south. Asher went on the west and Jordan on the east. The fort cities were Zidim, Zur, Hamath, Rakath, Kinnereth, Adamah, Ramah, Hazar, Kedeth, Idri, and Hazor, Iron, Migdal, El, Horem, Beth Anath, and Beth Shemesh. 19 towns and their villages. This is the inheritance of the tribe of Naphtali, the cities and their villages, clan by clan. Dan. The seventh lot fell to Dan. The territory of their inheritance included Zorah, Eshtiel, Ir Shemash, Shaban, Ajian, Ithlath, Elon, Timnah, Ekron, Elteketh, Gibbethan, Balath, Jahud, Bena, Berek, Gath Rimam, Meet Jarkon, and Rakan, with the region facing Joppa. But the people of Dan failed to get rid of the westerners, the Amorites, who pushed them back into the hills. The westerners kept them out of the plain, and they didn't have enough room. So the people of Dan marched up and attacked Leshem. They took it, killed the inhabitants, and settled in. They renamed it Leshem Dan, after the name of Dan, their ancestor. This is the inheritance of the tribe of Dan according to its clans, these towns and their villages. They completed the dividing of the land as inheritance and the setting of its boundaries. The people of Israel then gave an inheritance among them to Joshua, son of Nun. In obedience to God's word, they gave him the city which he had rescued, Timnath-Serah, in the hill country of Ephraim. He rebuilt the city and settled there. These are the inheritance which Eleazar the priest and Joshua, son of Nun, and the ancestral leaders assigned by lot to the tribes of Israel at Shiloh in the presence of God at the entrance of the tent of meeting. They completed the dividing of the land. Joshua chapter 20. Asylum cities. Then God spoke to Joshua, tell the people of Israel, designate the asylum cities as I instructed you through Moses, so that anyone who kills a person accidentally, that is, unintentionally, may flee there as a safe place of asylum from the avenger of blood. A person shall escape for refuge to one of these cities, stand at the entrance to the city gate, and lay out his case before the city's leaders. The leaders must then take him into the city among them and give him a place to live with them. If the avenger of blood chases after him, they must not give him up. He didn't intend to kill the person. There was no history of ill feeling. He may stay in that city until he has stood trial before the congregation and until the death of the current high priest. Then he may go back to his hometown, in his hometown from which he fled. They set apart Kadesh and Galilee in the hills of Naphtali, Shechem in the hills of Ephraim, and Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the hills of Judah. On the other side of Jordan, east of Jericho, they designated Bezor on the desert plateau from the tribe of Reuben, Ramoth in Gilead from the tribe of Gad, and Golan in Bashan from the tribe of Manasseh. These were the designated cities for the people of Israel and any resident foreigner living among them, so that anyone who killed someone unintentionally could flee there and not die by the hand of the avenger of blood without a fair trial before the congregation. Joshua chapter 21. Cities for the Levites. The ancestral heads of the Levites came to Eleazar the priest and Joshua son of Nun, and to the heads of the other tribes of the people of Israel. This took place at Shiloh in the land of Canaan. They said, God commanded through Moses that you give us cities to live in with access to pastures for our cattle. So the people of Israel out of their inheritance gave the Levites, just as God commanded, the following cities and pastures. The lot came out for the families of the Kohathites this way. Levites descended from Aaron the priest received by lot 13 cities out of the tribes of Judah, Simeon, and Benjamin. The rest of the Kohathites received a lot of 10 cities from the families of the tribes of Ephraim, Dan, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. The Gershonites received by lot 13 cities from the families of the tribes of Issachar, Asher, Naphtali, and the half-tribe of Manasseh and Bashan. The families of the Merarites received 12 towns from the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and Zebulun. So the people of Israel gave these cities with their pastures to the Levites, just as God had ordered through Moses, that is, by lot. Cities for the descendants of Aaron. They assigned from the tribes of Judah, Simeon, and Benjamin the following towns, here named individually. These were for the descendants of Aaron, who were from the families of the Kohathite branch of Levi, because the first lot fell to them. Kiriath Arba. Arba was the ancestor of Anak, that is Hebron in the hills of Judah, with access to the pastures around it. The fields of the city and its open lands they had already given to Caleb, son of Jephunneh, as his possession. To the descendants of Aaron the priest they gave Hebron, the asylum city for the unconvicted killers, Libnah, Jatur, Estemoa, Holon, Debir, Ayan, Juttah, and Beth Shemesh, all with their accompanying pastures, 9 towns from these 2 tribes. And from the tribe of Benjamin, Gibeon, Geba, Anathoth, and Almon, together with their pastures, 4 towns. The total for the cities and pastures for the priests descended from Aaron came to 13. The rest of the Kohathite families from the tribe of Levi were assigned their cities by lot from the tribe of Ephraim: Shechem, the asylum city for the unconvicted killer, in the hills of Ephraim, Gezer, Gabzium, and both Haran, with their pastures, 4 towns. From the tribe of Dan they received Eltekah, Gibbethon, Ajalon, and Gathrimmon, all with their pastures, 4 towns. And from the half-tribe of Manasseh they received Tanakh and Gathrimmon with their pastures, 2 towns. All told, 10 cities with their pastures went to the remaining Kohathite families. The Gershonite families of the tribe of Levi were given from the half-tribe of Manasseh: Golan and Bashan, an asylum city for the unconvicted killer, and Be-Ashtaroth with their pastures, 2 cities. And from the tribe of Issachar: Kishion, Dabirah, Jarmuth, and En-Ganim with their pastures, 4 towns. From the tribe of Asher: Mishal, Abdon, Keltot, and Rehal with their pastures, 4 towns. From the tribe of Naphtali: Giddesh and Galilee, an asylum city for the unconvicted killer, Hamath-dor and Katan with their pastures, 3 towns. For the Gershonites and their families, 13 towns with their pastures. The Merari families, the remaining Levites, were given from the tribe of Zebulun: Jokneam, Karta, Dimnah, and Nahalal with their pastures, 4 cities. From the tribe of Reuben: Bezir, Jahath, Kedemoth, and Mephah with their pastures, 4 towns. From the tribe of Gad: Ramoth and Gilead, an asylum city for the unconvicted killer, Mahanaim, Hashbon, and Jazar with their pastures, a total of 4 towns. All these towns were assigned by lot to the Merarites, the remaining Levites, 12 towns. The Levites held 48 towns with their accompanying pastures with the territory of the people of Israel. Each of these towns had pastures surrounding it. This was the case for all these towns. And so God gave Israel the entire land that he had solemnly vowed to give to their ancestors. They took possession of it and made themselves at home in it. And God gave them rest on all sides, as he had also solemnly vowed to their ancestors. Not a single one of their enemies was able to stand up to them. God handed over all their enemies to them. Not one word fell from all the good words God spoke to the house of Israel. Everything came out right. Joshua chapter 22. Then Joshua called together the Reubenites, Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh and said, "You've carried out everything Moses, the servant of God, commanded you, and you've obediently done everything I've commanded you. All this time and right down to this very day, you've not abandoned your brothers. You've shouldered the task laid on you by God, your God, and now God, your God, has given rest to the brothers, just as he promised them. You're now free to go back to your homes, the country of your inheritance that Moses, the servant of God, gave you on the other side of the Jordan. Only this, be vigilant in keeping the commandment and the revelation that Moses, the servant of God, laid on you. Love God, your God, walk in all his ways, do what he's commanded, embrace him, serve him with everything you are and have." Then Joshua blessed them and sent them on their way. They went home to the half-tribe of Manasseh. Moses had assigned a share in Bashan. To the other half, Joshua assigned land with their brothers west of the Jordan. When Joshua sent them off to their homes, he blessed them. He said, "Go home. You're going home rich, great herds of cattle, silver and gold, bronze and iron, huge piles of clothing. Share the wealth with your friends and families, all this plunder from your enemies." The Reubenites, Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh left the people of Israel at Shiloh in the land of Canaan to return to Gilead, the land of their possession, which they had taken under the command of Moses as ordered by God. They arrived at Gilead on the Jordan, touching on the Canaanite land. There the Reubenites, Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh built an altar on the banks of the Jordan, a huge altar. The people of Israel heard of it. "What's this? The Reubenites, Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh have built an altar facing the land of Canaan at Gilead on Jordan across from the people of Israel." When the people of Israel heard this, the entire congregation mustered at Shiloh to go to war against them. They sent Phinehas, son of Eleazar the priest, to the Reubenites, Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, that is, to the land of Gilead. Accompanying him were 10 chiefs, 1 chief for each of the 10 tribes, each the head of his ancestral family. They represented the military divisions of Israel. They went to the Reubenites, Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh and spoke to them. The entire congregation of God wants to know, what is this violation against the God of Israel that you've committed? Turning your back on God and building your own altar, a blatant act of rebellion against God. Wasn't the crime of Peor enough for you? Why to this day we aren't rid of it, still living with the fallout of the plague on the congregation of God. Look at you, turning your back on God. If you rebel against God today, tomorrow he'll vent his anger on all of us, the entire congregation of Israel. If you think the land of your possession isn't holy enough but somehow contaminated, come back over to God's possession where God's dwelling is set up, and take your land there. But don't rebel against God, and don't rebel against us by building your own altar apart from the altar of your God. When Achan, son of Zerah, violated the holy curse, didn't anger fall on the whole congregation of Israel? He wasn't the only one to die for his sin. The Reubenites, Gadites, and half-tribe of Manasseh replied to the heads of the tribes of Israel, the God of gods is God. The God of gods is God. He knows, and he'll let Israel know if this is a rebellious betrayal of God. And if it is, don't bother saving us. If we built ourselves an altar in rebellion against God, if we did it to present on it whole burnt offerings or grain offerings, to enact their sacrificial peace offerings, let God decide. But that's not it. We did it because we cared. We were anxious lest someday your children should say to our children, you're not connected with God, the God of Israel. God made the Jordan a boundary between us and you. You Reubenites and Gadites have no part in God. And then your children might cause our children to quit worshiping God. So we said to ourselves, let's do something. Let's build an altar, but not for whole burnt offerings, not for sacrifices. We built this altar as a witness between us and you and our children coming after us. A witness to the altar where we worship God in his sacred dwelling with our whole burnt offerings and our sacrifices and our peace offerings. This way your children won't be able to say to our children in the future, you have no part in God. We said to ourselves, if anyone speaks despairingly to us or to our children in the future, we'll say, look at this model of God's altar, which our ancestors made. It is not for whole burnt offerings, not for sacrifices. It's a witness connecting us with you. Rebellion against or turning our backs on God is the last thing on our minds right now. We never dreamed of building an altar for whole burnt offerings or grain offerings to rival the altar of our God in front of his sacred dwelling. Phinehas the priest and all the heads of the congregation and the heads of the military divisions of Israel, who were also with him, heard what the Reubenites, Gadites, and half-tribe of Manasseh had to say. They were satisfied. Priest Phinehas, son of Eleazar, said to Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh, now we're convinced that God is present with us since you haven't been disloyal to God in this matter. You saved the people of Israel from God's discipline. Then priest Phinehas, son of Eleazar, left the Reubenites, Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh from Gilead, and with the chiefs returned to the land of Canaan to the people of Israel and gave a full report. They were pleased with the report. The people of Israel blessed God. There was no more talk of attacking and destroying the land in which the Reubenites and Gadites were living. Reuben and Gad named the altar, a witness between us. God alone is God. Joshua chapter 23. Joshua's charge. A long time later, after God had given Israel rest from all their surrounding enemies, and Joshua was a venerable old man, Joshua called all Israel together, elders, chiefs, judges, and officers. Then he spoke to them. I'm an old man. I've lived a long time. You've seen everything that God has done to these nations because of you. He did it because he's God, your God. He fought for you. Stay alert. I've assigned you by lot these nations that remain as an inheritance to your tribe. These in addition to the nations I've already cut down. From the Jordan to the great sea in the west, God your God will drive them out of your path until there's nothing left of them, and you'll take over their land just as God your God promised you. Now stay strong and steady. Obediently do everything written in the book of the Revelation of Moses. Don't miss a detail. Don't get mixed up with the nations that are still around. Don't so much as speak the names of their gods or swear by them, and by all means, don't worship or pray to them. Hold tight to God your God, just as you've done up to now. God has driven out superpowered nations before you, and up to now, no one's been able to stand up to you. Think of it, one of you single-handedly putting 1,000 on the run, because God is God, your God, because he fights for you just as he promised you. Now vigilantly guard your souls. Love God your God, because if you wander off and start taking up with these remaining nations still among you, intermarry, say, and have other dealings with them, know for certain that God your God will not get rid of these nations for you. There'll be nothing but trouble for you. Horsewhips on your backs and sand in your eyes until you're the ones who will be driven out of this good land that God your God has given you. As you can see, I'm about to go the way we all end up going. Know this with all your heart, with everything in you, that not one detail has failed of all the good things that God your God promised you. It has all happened, nothing left undone, not so much as a word. But just as sure as everything good that God your God has promised has come true, so also God will bring to pass every bad thing until there's nothing left of you in this good land that God has given you. If you leave the path of the covenant of God your God that he commanded you, go off and serve and worship other gods, God's anger will blaze out against you. In no time at all, there'll be nothing left for you, no sign that you've ever been in this good land he gave you. Joshua chapter 24, the covenant at Shechem. Joshua called together all the tribes of Israel at Shechem. He called in the elders, chiefs, judges, and officers. They presented themselves before God. Then Joshua addressed all the people. This is what God, the God of Israel, says. A long time ago, your ancestors, Terah and his sons Abraham and Nahor, lived to the east of the river Euphrates. They worshipped other gods. I took your ancestor Abraham from the far side of the river. I led him over from the land of Canaan and multiplied his descendants. I gave him Isaac. Then I gave Isaac Jacob and Esau. I let Esau have the mountains of Seir at home, but Jacob and his sons ended up in Egypt. I sent Moses and Aaron. I hit Egypt hard with plagues and led you out of there. I brought your ancestors out of Egypt. You came to the sea, the Egyptians in hot pursuit with chariots and cavalry, to the very edge of the Red Sea. They cried out to God for help. He put a cloud between you and the Egyptians and then let the sea loose on them. It drowned them. You watched the whole thing with your own eyes, what I did to Egypt, and then you lived in the wilderness for a long time. I brought you to the country of the Amorites who lived east of Jordan. They fought you, but I fought for you. You took their land. I destroyed them for you. Then Balak, son of Zippor, made his appearance. He was the king of Moab. He got ready to fight Israel by sending for Balaam, son of Peor, to come and curse you. But I wouldn't listen to Balaam. He ended up blessing you over and over. I saved you from him. You then crossed the Jordan and came to Jericho. The Jericho leaders gained upon you as well as the Amorites, Perizzites, Canaanites, Hittites, Girgashites, Hivites, and Jebusites. But I turned them over to you. I sent the hornet ahead of you. It drove out the 2 Amorite kings, did work for you. You didn't have to do a thing, not so much as raise a finger. I handed you a land which you did not work for, towns you did not build. And here you are now living in them and eating from the vineyards and olive groves you did not plant. So now fear God, worship him in total commitment. Get rid of the gods your ancestors worshiped on the far side of the river, the Euphrates, and in Egypt. You worship God. If you decide that it's a bad thing to worship God, then choose a God you'd rather serve and do it today. Choose one of the gods your ancestors worshiped from the country beyond the river, or one of the gods of the Amorites on whose land you're now living. As for me and my family, we'll worship God. The people answered, we'd never forsake God, never. We'd never leave God to worship other gods. God is our God. He brought up our ancestors from Egypt and from slave conditions. He did all those great signs while we watched. He has kept his eye on us all along the roads we've traveled and among the nations we've passed through. Just for us, he drove out all the nations, Amorites, and all who lived in the land. Count on us. We're going to worship God. He's our God. Then Joshua told the people, you can't do it. You're not able to worship God. He's a holy God. He's a jealous God. He won't put up with your fooling around and sinning. When you leave God and take up the worship of foreign gods, he'll turn right around and come down on you hard. He'll put an end to you and after all the good he's done for you. But the people of Joshua said, no, we worship God. And so Joshua addressed the people, you're witnesses against yourselves that you've chosen God for yourselves to worship him. And they said, we're witnesses. Joshua said, now get rid of all the foreign gods with you. Say an unqualified yes to God, the God of Israel. The people answered Joshua, we will worship God. What he says we'll do. Joshua completed a covenant for the people that day there at Shechem. He made it official, spelling it out in detail. Joshua wrote out all the directions and regulations into the book of the revelation of God. Then he took a large stone and set it up under the oak that was in the holy place of God. Joshua spoke to all the people, this stone is a witness against us. It has heard every word that God has said to us. It is a standing witness against you, lest you cheat on your God. Then Joshua dismissed the people, each to his own place for inheritance. After all this, Joshua, son of Nun, the servant of God, died. He was 110 years old. They buried him in the land of his inheritance at Timnath-Serah in the mountains of Ephraim, north of Mount Gaash. Israel served God through the lifetime of Joshua and of the elders who outlived him, who had themselves experienced all that God had done for Israel. Joseph's bones with the people of Israel had brought from Egypt, they buried in Shechem, in the plot of ground that Jacob had purchased from the sons of Hamor, which was the father of Shechem. He paid 100 silver coins for it. It belongs to the inheritance of the family of Joseph. Eleazar, son of Aaron, died. They buried him at Gibeah, which had been allotted to his son Phinehas in the mountains of Ephraim. This is the word of the Lord.